James Collins lived in a small town in the southern United States in the early 1960s, a period marked by significant social tensions and profound struggle for civil rights. At 16, James was bright, observant, and deeply aware of the complexities around him. The town, nestled among green rolling hills, was tranquil and picturesque at first glance. Yet underneath its calm surface simmered deep-seated racial tensions, rooted in decades of segregation and prejudice. James spent most of his days helping his parents, Samuel and Martha Collins, run their modest bookstore situated on the town's main street. The bookstore, modestly named Collins Corner, was one of the few places where the boundaries of race and class momentarily blurred, allowing for limited and cautious interaction among the town's residents. Samuel, James's father, was a soft-spoken man, respected for his wisdom and quiet strength. Martha, his mother, was gentle yet firm, renowned in the community for her kindness and fairness. Both Samuel and Martha instilled in James a strong sense of justice, equality, and compassion, through their actions more than their words. James was an avid reader, captivated by stories of courage, adventure, and especially narratives of justice and freedom. His favourite moments were those quiet evenings after closing time, sitting among the rows of bookshelves, absorbing the powerful ideas printed on pages that felt distant from the stark reality of his daily life. He often wondered why the ideals of equality and brotherhood he cherished in books seemed impossible to achieve in his own community. The reality of segregation was visible in every corner of the town. Different schools, different benches in the park, separated seating in diners, and even separate waiting rooms at the bus station served as stark reminders of division. Despite these harsh realities, James maintained an optimistic perspective, deeply influenced by his parents' unwavering belief in dignity and respect for all. James had one particularly close friend, Tommy Clark, whose family held progressive beliefs quietly, rejecting many of the discriminatory norms that permeated the community. Tommy was white, and his friendship with James was rare and risky, though neither boy paid much mind to the dangers. They often spent their afternoons together, either at the bookstore or wandering the outskirts of town, discussing their futures, sharing dreams of a world where their friendship would be the rule, rather than the exception. One warm spring afternoon, while rearranging shelves to accommodate new arrivals at the bookstore, James stumbled upon something intriguing, a series of hidden letters tucked inside the pages of an old dusty novel. Curious, James called Tommy over, and they carefully extracted the fragile yellowed pages. They soon discovered the letters were anonymous, penned decades earlier by two teenagers whose friendship, despite social taboos, mirrored their own. The letters captivated James and Tommy. Each handwritten note revealed emotions and events from the early 1900s, detailing the struggles, fears, and quiet acts of bravery performed by friends navigating a deeply segregated society. As the boys read further, they became profoundly moved by the resilience and determination reflected in those carefully preserved pages. James found himself strongly identifying with the authors, courage, and yearned to uncover the identity behind these hidden voices. Over the following days, the two friends spent every free moment poring over the letters. Each letter shared new insights, bringing to life vivid moments of friendship and conflict, dreams of equality, and harsh experiences of discrimination. James grew increasingly aware that these letters contained a powerful message, not just about the past, but relevant and pressing for their own times. The words resonated deeply with him, strengthening his resolve to address the injustice and inequality he saw around him daily. James found himself wrestling with difficult questions. Should these letters, intimate and historically significant, be shared openly with the community? risking backlash against himself, his family, and even the bookstore. Was the message in these letters strong enough to provoke positive change? Or would their revelation cause further division? These thoughts weighed heavily on him, creating a personal conflict that James had never before experienced. Unable to hold these feelings inside, James began speaking about the letters to Tommy's parents. Mr. and Mrs. Clark encouraged the boys, recognizing the historical importance and the potential for promoting dialogue and understanding in the town. With cautious optimism, they suggested ways to gently introduce the letters to the community, perhaps through small gatherings at the bookstore or through carefully composed excerpts placed discreetly around town. As James contemplated their advice, he started noticing subtle changes around him. His eyes opened wider to the unspoken but rigid rules of his community. James observed closely the interactions among his neighbours and began to notice moments of quiet resistance and rare instances of empathy, hidden beneath layers of conformity and fear. Each observation reaffirmed the importance of taking action. James knew that to challenge deeply embedded prejudices meant stepping into uncertainty. He understood the risks clearly. However, the thought persisted strongly within him. The anonymous voices from the past were calling upon him to take a stand, urging him to share their stories and challenge the norms of his community. Little did James realize that this critical decision, to bring hidden truths into the open, would soon lead him down an unpredictable path, forever changing his life and leaving a lasting impact on everyone around him. James began by carefully selecting excerpts from the letters, choosing passages that highlighted universal themes of friendship, courage, and unity, rather than those that might directly provoke hostility. With Tommy's help, he typed the chosen excerpts onto clean sheets of paper, arranging them thoughtfully, with brief introductions explaining their historical context. One evening, James and Tommy placed these excerpts discreetly around town, in the library, at bus stops, pinned on community notice boards, and even tucked gently inside hymnals at local churches. The intention was to provoke thought and inspire quiet conversations, not immediate conflict. Initially, the response was subtle. Whispers started to circulate. People began quietly discussing the letters during casual meetings in the grocery store or after church services. Curiosity sparked conversations previously considered taboo, challenging residents to reflect on their attitudes and beliefs. However, not everyone appreciated this newfound dialogue. A week after the excerpts appeared, James noticed some hostility brewing. Flyers started disappearing, replaced by ominous warnings against stirring trouble. James recognized handwriting that belonged to some of the more influential figures in town, individuals deeply invested in maintaining the status quo. Anxiety gripped James, but he knew turning back was no longer an option. One day after school, James and Tommy were confronted by Richard Hill, a local businessman known for his staunch defense of segregation. Hill made his displeasure clear, advising the boys to stop meddling and threatening consequences for the bookstore if they continued. The encounter rattled James, yet it also fortified his resolve. When James confided in his parents about the threats, Samuel and Martha offered steadfast support, reminding him that standing for justice often required personal sacrifice. Encouraged by his parents' strength, James chose to continue sharing the messages of hope and unity from the letters, believing their truth too important to silence. James decided to organise a small community reading at Collins Corner, inviting townspeople to openly discuss the letters. The response surprised him. A diverse mix of residents, some openly supportive, others simply curious, attended the gathering. James read passages aloud, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The power of the words resonated. sparking an intense but respectful dialogue about race, friendship, and community. Yet tensions escalated further after the event. Rumours spread rapidly. James found himself increasingly isolated at school. Old friends distanced themselves, wary of association. Tommy faced similar pressures, his family receiving anonymous threats and experiencing social isolation. Determined not to falter, James and Tommy pressed forward, strengthened by a growing number of quiet supporters who privately encouraged their efforts. Each small step brought more allies into their circle, individuals willing to support change, even if quietly. Just as James felt hope beginning to outweigh fear, an act of vandalism jolted the entire community. Collins Corner bookstore was vandalized overnight. Windows shattered. Hateful graffiti scrawled across walls. The damage intended as a clear message of intimidation. Yet, amid this adversity, something remarkable happened. Town residents, both black and white, rallied together to help repair and restore the bookstore. The destructive act intended to intimidate had unintentionally united people from all corners of the community, each committed to standing against hate. Witnessing this solidarity, James understood more clearly than ever the power of courage and community. He realized that despite the risks, their struggle was igniting important conversations, slowly shifting perspectives, and challenging deeply rooted prejudices. However, James also knew this was only the beginning. He could sense greater challenges awaited him, that the journey towards equality and understanding was far from over. The path ahead would test every ounce of his courage and resolve. Yet James was prepared to continue, driven by an unwavering commitment to justice, equality, and the powerful stories from the past that had inspired it all. Following the vandalism of Collins Corner, James and his family faced increased scrutiny from certain segments of the community. Local officials, largely influenced by individuals like Richard Hill, offered little support, instead subtly suggesting the Collins family reconsider their involvement in controversial matters. James, though disheartened, chose to press forward. Encouraged by the unexpected community support after the vandalism, he began organising weekly discussions at the restored bookstore, inviting anyone willing to engage in honest dialogue. Attendance steadily grew, and these gatherings became a symbol of quiet resistance, drawing in diverse individuals who sought genuine change. Yet tensions in town heightened sharply. The local school, already segregated, became increasingly hostile toward James. Teachers, under pressure from powerful community members, began singling him out. His classmates, influenced by parents who disapproved of James's activism, openly mocked him, and he often found himself isolated during school hours. Tommy, loyal but facing pressures of his own, remained supportive yet struggled visibly with the mounting tension between his family and neighbours. The situation worsened dramatically when James organised a reading of particularly impactful letters at the local community centre, hoping for broader outreach. Word spread quickly, and although many were supportive, others were angered by what they perceived as provocative acts. The night before the event, James received a threatening note warning him against holding the reading. Undeterred, James proceeded as planned, resolved not to yield to intimidation. The reading itself was powerful, drawing more attendees than ever before, filling the hall with residents eager for change. Voices trembled as they shared their own experiences, both painful and hopeful, sparking emotional, powerful conversations that lingered long after the evening ended. However, as attendees dispersed, James noticed a group gathered ominously outside. Among them was Richard Hill and several influential community members known for their resistance to integration. The confrontation that ensued was intense. Angry words filled the air, accusations flew, and James stood his ground, firmly but respectfully, unwilling to escalate violence. In the days following, community polarization intensified. Supporters rallied more openly around James, inspired by his courage and the evident injustice of the opposition he faced. Yet, backlash from detractors became fierce, culminating in the town council's sudden decision to implement stricter regulations limiting gatherings, clearly targeting James's activities. Determined to challenge these regulations, James, supported by his family, Tommy's parents, and newfound allies, sought legal counsel. They began organising quietly, carefully documenting injustices and gathering evidence to legally contest the discriminatory rules. Amid these struggles, James also faced emotional turmoil. His relationships with peers deteriorated further, and his friendship with Tommy became strained by external pressures, though it remained resilient. James wrestled privately with doubt, loneliness, and fear for his family's safety. Yet his commitment to justice and equality never wavered. Just as tensions reached an unbearable level, James uncovered another set of hidden letters. Letters revealing even deeper secrets about the town's past, implicating some of its current leaders in long-concealed injustices. Armed with this new, powerful information, James faced an agonizing decision. Expose these truths, risking further escalation and danger, or hold back, hoping quieter efforts would suffice. Recognizing the gravity of the moment, James knew his next decision would irrevocably change the course of his community's history. Gathering his strength, he resolved that truth and justice required boldness, understanding deeply that the coming days would demand every ounce of his courage, conviction, and integrity. Faced with the weight of new revelations, James deliberated deeply about his next steps. After long conversations with his parents and Tommy, he decided to reveal the letters publicly at a special town meeting, believing that honesty and transparency could serve as a catalyst for a profound community change. The evening of the meeting arrived with an atmosphere charged with anticipation and tension. Residents filled the community centre, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity, support, skepticism, and open hostility. Jane stood confidently at the front, the box of letters resting prominently before him. Jane spoke clearly, carefully presenting the history contained within the letters, naming no individuals directly but allowing the facts to speak powerfully for themselves. As he read, shock rippled through the audience. The implications of past actions by prominent community leaders hung heavily in the air. Richard Hill and his allies immediately reacted with outrage, vehemently denying the implications, accusing James of fabricating lies. Tension soared, emotions erupted, and the meeting descended into chaos. Amid the commotion, a calm, authoritative voice silenced the crowd. It was Judge Eleanor Stanton, a respected elder in the community, known for her impartiality and moral fortitude. Judge Stanton, who rarely spoke publicly on divisive issues, stepped forward, addressing the crowd with authority. She confirmed the authenticity of the events described in the letters, revealing that she too had personal knowledge of these hidden truths. Her courageous intervention validated James's revelations, dramatically shifting the meeting's tone. Her words deeply moved many in attendance, leading to an unprecedented wave of self-reflection among even the most resistant residents. Conversations flowed freely, apologies and admissions emerged spontaneously, and the beginnings of reconciliation surfaced within the turmoil. Yet, outside the hall, resistance persisted. Later that night, after the emotionally charged gathering, James found himself confronted by a group of opponents, including Richard Hill. The confrontation quickly escalated beyond heated words, becoming dangerously physical. Tommy, sensing danger, intervened bravely, standing firmly beside his friend, despite clear threats. Police arrived swiftly, separating the crowd, arresting Hill and several others involved in the violence. The incident sparked an immediate public outcry, further solidifying the community's resolve to support James's quest for truth and justice. In the days following, public debates became more open and earnest. Local media covered the events extensively, highlighting James's bravery and the shifting tides within the community. While the confrontation intensified scrutiny of discriminatory practices, it also galvanized those in support of change, fostering new alliances across racial lines. James felt both vindicated and profoundly challenged. The threats and violence underscored the depth of resistance he faced. Yet the growing support reassured him that his efforts were meaningful and necessary. Emboldened by this turning point, community members began openly discussing integration measures for schools and public spaces, proposing changes long considered impossible. James realized that his actions, though initially risky and controversial, had undeniably sparked a vital, transformative process within the community. Still, James understood the journey was far from complete. The path toward genuine equality and justice would be long and filled with challenges. Yet, standing firmly amidst uncertainty, surrounded by growing support, James found renewed determination, ready to face whatever lay ahead, propelled forward by the profound power of truth, courage, and collective hope. In the aftermath of the tumultuous events, the town slowly began to heal. The violent confrontation, arrests, and public revelations had deeply shaken the community. But these events had also created space for genuine reflection and dialogue. Richard Hill and several other influential community figures faced legal repercussions, marking a significant moment of accountability. The courtroom trials became public forums where suppressed truths were openly discussed, further reinforcing James's message of transparency and justice. James, now viewed as a catalyst for positive change, continued to organize community meetings at Collins Corner. Attendance flourished, welcoming participants from all walks of life. These gatherings became transformative spaces, facilitating difficult yet vital conversations, leading to greater empathy and understanding among townspeople. Tommy's family openly supported James and his family, their courage inspiring others to break their silence. Tommy himself emerged stronger, more resolute and deeply committed to social justice, advocating passionately alongside James. Their friendship, tested by adversity, became a powerful symbol of unity and hope within the town. Over time, tangible changes took root. The previously segregated school began integrating, a process carefully overseen by community leaders, including Judge Stanton. Though the transition faced challenges, the community's growing commitment to equality eased tensions, fostering an environment where students of all backgrounds learned side by side, slowly dismantling years of prejudice. James's parents experienced profound relief and pride. Samuel and Martha watched their son's courage transform not only their bookstore, but also the entire community, affirming their lifelong belief in justice and dignity. Collins Corner became renowned regionally as a hub for civil rights education and advocacy, attracting visitors eager to learn and contribute to ongoing discussions about race, history, and reconciliation. Recognizing the need to preserve the powerful lessons revealed by the letters, James, supported by Judge Stanton and community leaders, established a local historical archive within the bookstore. This archive served as a permanent reminder of the town's journey, preserving stories of courage, struggle, and triumph for future generations. As months turned to years, James, now a respected young leader, continued speaking at schools, community centres, and gatherings across the region. He emphasised the importance of truth, dialogue, and empathy, always reminding others of the power that ordinary individuals hold in shaping their communities. Tommy, inspired by their shared experiences, pursued a career in law, dedicating himself to advocating for civil rights and equal justice. Their friendship, rooted in childhood and tested by adversity, grew stronger through shared purpose, inspiring countless others along the way. The town itself underwent gradual but undeniable transformation. Public spaces became inclusive, dialogue replaced confrontation, and residents actively sought ways to address systemic inequities. Though imperfections and struggles persisted, the community learned that meaningful change was possible through persistence, courage, and collective action. Reflecting on his journey, James often returned to the quiet evenings spent reading among the bookshelves. He marvelled at how the hidden letters discovered so long ago had reshaped his life, and ultimately the lives of countless others. The past, with all its hidden pains and powerful truths, had illuminated a path forward, a path defined by resilience, courage, and unyielding hope. In the quiet moments at Collins Corner, James found profound peace, knowing that the legacy of courage and unity he helped foster would endure. He recognised that while the journey toward justice and equality would never truly end, each step forward brought them closer to the world he had always dreamed of. A world where friendship, understanding, and compassion could triumph over fear, prejudice, and hatred. James closed the final pages of the last recovered letter, placing it gently into the archive. Turning toward the open door of the bookstore, he smiled, hopeful for what lay ahead, knowing that together the community would continue writing its story. A story of ongoing courage, compassion, and collective healing.